Welcome to the Blueprint Podcast, where we throw out the old blueprint so you can become who you were always meant to be. I'm your host, Jason Smith, and if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and share this podcast with your friends on social media and tag me in it, @Jaybird Today, I have a very special guest for you, Dr. Sabrina Romanoff. Dr. Romanoff is a licensed psychologist in New York City with a decade of diverse experience working with children, adults, and couples. She specializes in relationships, work stress, and life transitions, and has extensive training in anxiety, depression, and trauma. Beyond her clinical practice, Dr. Romanoff is a professor at Yeshiva University and a review board member for Self and Forbes magazines. Dr. Sabrina Romanoff, welcome to the Blueprint Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jason. So happy to be here.
I'm really excited that you're here. I don't know exactly how I found you, but somehow I came across one of your posts and it just resonated with me so much. I started diving into some of the other things and I'm like, we are in very much alignment with the things that we're creating and the way that we think about relationships, but those interpersonal relationships across different aspects of our lives. So I love your content. It's truly informational and beneficial. So everybody go follow Sabrina right now and dive into her content. Sabrina, tell everybody who you are and who you help.
My name is Dr. Sabrina Romanoff. I'm a psychologist based in New York City. I work mostly with couples and individuals, so people in their 20s and 30s, most high functioning people. And what I found is people who are very high achieving, very high functioning. They have a great CV, a great resume, great job on the outside, but often the lens it takes to get there lead to so much self-sacrifice. And usually their personal lives are a little bit more messy. So that's my bread and butter. I love all things relationships.
You've studied the intersection of relationships, trauma, and personality. What do you believe the most misunderstood aspect of attachment theory actually is?
Great question. Attachment theory gets thrown out there all the time.
Everybody hangs their hat on it lately.
Absolutely. It's a sense of control when it comes to dating and relationships.
There it is.
Misunderstood aspect, though, is that relationship styles, your attachment style, it's not fixed. They're actually very fluid. Are usually formed in your early experiences and often in your current relationships. So even someone with an insecure early adult or early life, they might become more secure later in life and vice versa. So your attachment style essentially is how you relate to other people, and it's formed through this original blueprint of how you related to your parents. You'll be secure if you're comfortable receiving love and if you receive secure love from your parents growing up. You might be more anxious if you fear abandonment. That's going to result in a lot of neediness and seeking reassurance from your partner. And you might be avoided if you fear abandonment too, but you avoid getting close at all because intimacy to you means getting neglected. The most avoidant people early in life had to take care of their parents often, and it felt like to preserve attachment to people meant suppressing their needs. And for them, relationships are just too costly. So people often misunderstand that you can be securely attached and have a very avoidant partner, and that will polarize you into the more anxious role.
That's super interesting. So how can someone who is securely attached be pulled more into that anxious role? What does that look like?
So let's say you have an avoidant partner. They keep you at a distance. They're often closed off. They don't share very much with you. That might make you be unsure of your relationship with them. And it might question your own worth, right? We often find our sense of self through our relationships. So if our partner is maybe making us feel rejected, it might cause us to need more reassurance. So when we're unsure of our worthiness, we're going to seek more from the other person. And the more anxious we get, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're going to need to text more. We need more and more proof that the other person is choosing us. And that on the other side is sending the message, wow, this person's needs are way too much. To be closely connected to them means that I need to meet their needs all the time and suppress my own. So unfortunately, it creates these self-fulfilling prophecies. The fear ends up becoming what actually happens.
Yeah, it's interesting because we make these unilateral decisions for other people. We don't dive into the communication aspect of this to say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm going through, and then give the other person the time and opportunity to be able to respond to your internal experience. How can we help that person along a little bit if we have enough self-awareness ourselves to recognize that's what your avoidant partner is actually going through?
It's not really about never having these misunderstandings. It's about recognizing the pattern in the moment and then talking about it. So if you notice the other person is getting distant, it's never really so much about the content. We get stuck in the frequency of how quickly someone's responding to us or how quickly they're making plans. It's more about the process. I feel like I need you, and it feels like you are in outer space. I wonder what that's like for you. I think modern attachment theory is all about repair and not perfection in relationships. So for the anxious person, it's about saying, seeking reassurance, actually begging for it from your partner, isn't going to make you believe they really want to be there. Because if you have to beg for it, you can never really trust that they would give it freely. So it's really about authentic connection, not begging the other person to really be there for us.
That's a rough one. Begging for that attention. What do you do when you're someone who has been in that position for what feels like most of your life, where you feel like you are begging for that attention? See me, hear me, love me, spend time with me, recognize me, respect me.
It's such a common experience, and it starts from early childhood, right? As kids, we are not able to regulate our emotions. We need our parents to help us make us feel safe. And a lot of kids just never had that experience. They're often alone in these overwhelming emotions, and they're constantly seeking out what they didn't get. It starts with you. I love this idea of practicing 3 steps. 1, notice when you are feeling in that really heightened emotional state. I feel so unsafe right now in my body. I'm so anxious. People describe it as like crawling out of their skin. Sit and practice the pause. I'm not going to react impulsively based on this feeling. I'm going to pause. I'm going to label it in my body. I'm feeling really anxious right now. And then sit with it. Try to localize where in your body you feel that anxiety. Is it a tightness in your chest, is it in your hand? When you focus on what the emotion feels like in your body and just sit with it, eventually it'll be a knot that will basically like release. And then try to follow a more reparative emotion. And it could be really small. It could be taking a walk, as we love. It could be drinking water. It could be washing your hands. Anything that disrupts that pattern to create a new pathway for yourselves.
You've touched on so many different things here. I want to make sure that we hit on all the key notes. Is that your attachment style isn't fixed, it's not permanent. It is more of a spectrum. So when we look at our partners and even looking at ourselves, you're going to have that experience with different people at different time periods in different circumstances. And it can even show up in the workplace as well. So you might have it with mom and dad, but also your best friend, your romantic partner, and then your boss at work. Your attachment style may show up there as well. This is also something that can naturally change over time as you become more secure within yourself. You may have started out in your early 20s where you have this financial instability and other instabilities in your life. But as you continue to grow, develop, expand, and evolve throughout your 20s and you hit your 30s, now you've had a couple of promotions, you're doing better in your job, maybe you've bought a home and you're feeling more stable and secure within yourself, that impacts your attachment style as well.
Absolutely. It's definitely not linear and it can change throughout whatever we're going in life. I like the idea of also how you explain attachment theory. It doesn't just show up in our romantic relationships, it's in all relationships. And maybe it could feel safer to explore this with a friend or a newer person in your life than your parent or your romantic partner. And I think, again, that goes back to the idea of repair, repairing ruptures and coming together after an argument. That's what really makes you closer. Not only is it an opportunity to bond, but when you go through an argument that kind of threatens the existence of a relationship, you know that off ramp, the exit ramp is so accessible, but you're choosing not to take it. So often, repair after a rupture can be so powerful and make you feel so much closer.
It's interesting that you say that. I might be jumping around in my own questions, but this is a really great point to make here is having that third party in your life that is safe and secure. You're able to allow them to witness you and experience you and have a conversation with you, to feel that nervous system experience that we're having inside of ourselves, but then with that other person who feels safe and secure might be something that maybe you've never experienced before. I've had that recently with two people in my life where there's been that reparative and restorative interaction with that person. It's such an amazing feeling that you can share something about yourself and then it's not used against you, nor are you rejected because of it. They just sit with you, witness you, and observe that, and you're allowed to be your full authentic self. That is a true gift that you give to someone that can truly crack them open and set them free.
Absolutely. I always say relationships are the heartbeat of our existence. And it's never too late to make a new connection and to have that acceptance to be seen by another person. It changes how you show up in the world and relate to all other people, creates this domino effect, and it's so contagious.
So now the question is going to be, how do we find these people? Where are they? We see it all the time on social media. I struggle in this area and I can't seem to find somebody who wants to stick around or to be with me or to have this experience with me and to do life with.
Such an important question, and one I hear almost every day from the people I work with.
Yeah.
The goal is really to find things that you love to do, invest in yourself, invest in your own hobbies, and then find people who also love the exact same things. So it's about you showing up for yourself, investing in what you love, and then making connections that are genuine instead of forcing yourself or making it feel like work. And then it's also about you taking risks. It starts really small. It doesn't mean walking up to a stranger and asking them to go to dinner with you. It's about maybe seeing someone in Pilates class and smiling at them or asking them how their day is and then slowly building up the connection.
So how do we stop ourselves from investing in the wrong things? And this kind of goes with my second question here. In your work, you help high functioning and high performing individuals recognize their own patterns, especially in love, that may be rooted in early attachment wounding.
Great question. So it speaks to self sabotage. We know
Mm.
actually we should not be doing this, but emotionally, we unfortunately get drawn into this cycle. People are almost like magnets to self-sabotage patterns because it gives them predictability. It's the same vicious cycle, but at least they know what to expect. And sometimes we prefer that over all the uncertainty in a world. So it gives us a sense of control, even when the outcomes are negative. It's almost like saying, I will take the gloomy 7-day forecast over not really knowing what's really going to happen here. I think also you have to think about it in a bigger context. You might choose self sabotage because it's more preferable than a more intolerable experience. And sometimes people are so afraid of the unfamiliar that they'd rather the familiar hell or the familiar kind of jail cell they put themselves in.
Yeah, it's always that question of what if, but the only question you should be asking yourself is, what if it works out better than you thought?
And I
What ha-
think
what happens if we lean more into that?
you have to first understand the past, right? The what if this bad thing happens? What if the bomb goes off? That's a really common question for people who grow up in really difficult, challenging environments. It's like they are born with this threat radar detection system. And growing up, there were so many threats for them to navigate, especially as a kid. It's really about avoiding the backlash because you don't have so much control. And then you're still carrying that really old, outdated radar system with you through all your current relationships. So it's really about recognizing your fear detection system. It is way off, and you need to really question yourself. Do I need to really cling to the negative? Do I really need to worry about all this threat? Or maybe it's not really there. Maybe I can have another way of thinking about it.
What's an exercise that we can use to recalibrate or reorient ourselves into that felt sense of safety within ourselves?
So I mentioned this earlier, those 3 steps, it really is life-changing for so many of the people I work with. It's 1, practicing the pause. When you notice you are getting in this automatic, impulsive cycle of this behavior or perseverating or feeling anxious, notice it, label it in your body, and then choose a more effective outcome. Maybe it's doing something small, drinking a glass of water, going for a walk, or maybe it's something even bigger. Maybe it's having a different kind of conversation with someone or having a different way of relating to your world.
What are some of the most common emotional blind spots in people who constantly chase validation through achievement? And I can tell you, I am one of these people that chase that validation through achievement. I didn't have to go and get a master's degree, but I did. There's so many different aspects of my life where I didn't have to do all of these things. And I had to put a stop to it for myself because I was getting ready to go back and get another master's degree when I shifted out of police work. And that was a pivot in my life where I had to really zoom out, step back, and take an assessment and evaluate where I am. Who am I? Where am I going? What am I doing? Why am I doing it? What does the future look like? And make a decision. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to? Or am I doing it just because like that's what I'm good at? I know I can go do this. It'll take me 2.5 years. I'll knock it out. I'll become a therapist. No big deal. But how am I going to use that?
This is one of my favorite topics. I could do this forever.
Yeah.
So common. The problem with high achievers is they tend to equate productivity achievement with self-worth. And then that inevitably leads to burnout, this feeling of emptiness.
Oh, yeah.
High achievers, they have this mindset that prevents them from really appreciating their own value beyond what they're accomplishing. It's like high achievers, they're always operating from the dead zone or like the red zone below everyone else. They believe they're less proficient, less smart than everyone around them. And in turn, they have to work so much harder to compensate for those shortcomings. So for high achievers, achievement is this attempt to change their internal problem of self worth through the outside world. But the problem is that external accomplishments, they rarely penetrate that shell of self worth. It only really can be worked on from within. As soon as a lot of these people reach their goals, they immediately become less valuable just because they've achieved them, because they tend to devalue themselves. So the issue is that they have this fixed sense of self of a person who is not smart, not competent, and not capable. And the goal of what I try to do with a lot of these people is stop pursuing that notion that once you become this idealized, kind of accolade encrusted version of yourself, you're going to be happy because that person might be draped in all these awards. They might have the house or the dream job, but it'll often feel so hollow because they were pursued to the detriment of everything else in their life.
The other thing that I noticed with the high achievement is this lack of joy or to be able to tap into it. So I coined a phrase, retroactive joy. And the people that have heard that is, oh, what is this? What are we doing with that? A lot of it, when you think about it, it's more like inner child healing. So I use it as a meditation where you're laying on the ground, you're on your back, your feet are up, your feet are planted in the ground, your knees are up, and you're just laying there with whatever meditation music that you want or that you like. But you're going back to these old experiences that you've had where you got the accolade, but maybe you weren't present for it emotionally. You were going through the motions, you have a memory of it, but you don't have the emotional attachment to that particular event. And so you have to go back and allow yourself, for me, it's walking across the stage, getting hooded, shaking hands, having conversations, hearing people congratulate you. It's like in one ear and out the other. And you're allowing yourself again to be present in that moment and then accept that into your nervous system as something that is okay for you to have, okay for you to experience, and to recognize what that joy actually looks like and what that feels like.
I love that so much. Retroactive joy. I think that's so important because so often, again, it's like we're this shell that can't really be penetrated. And it's so important. Sounds like you're saying after the fact, find safety and then really
Yeah,
the accomplishment.
absolutely. So let's talk about avoidance because this is something that just social media loves it. And of course, everybody on my social media, they enjoy it as well. What are the costs people don't realize that they're paying for avoidance?
Great question. And it's a tough one because we avoid so much in our society and it's so easy to distract ourselves.
Even the anxious attachers are avoidant. They just don't recognize it.
That's so true. Anxious attachers are outsourcing every work they need to do. The problem is that avoidance, it helps us in the short term, but in the long game, it hurts us tremendously because it erodes intimacy and it erodes deep connection and really showing up and being present. So a lot of our relationships are suffering from a lack of vulnerability, a lack of emotional depth, and really the bravery it takes to not avoid and really show up and have a tough conversation or push through those really hard moments. So the problem with avoidance is that it perpetuates this loneliness and it unfortunately can be rebranded in a lot of ways. It gives you the illusion that you're hyper independent, you're self sufficient. But oftentimes I see that as just this shield against feeling really rejected and not worthy.
You see it also that they start to isolate as well. And you'll hear it a lot again on social media with all the healing talk on TikTok and Instagram. I feel so good because I'm alone and I don't have anybody. Yeah, because you're not being tested in your relational experiences, your interpersonal relationships. We're supposed to be in relationship with each other. We're supposed to be triggered in that relationship. We're supposed to have these experiences that cause us to have this dysregulation so you can begin to navigate your way through that again in the safety of another person.
Completely agree. And it's almost like a generational trend I'm noticing of the times. We're supposed to be in motion. We're supposed to be tested, like you said. forward or backward movement, it's all important. It's all a part of the lessons of life, of growing and evolving. What I'm noticing now is most people are coming into therapy saying, I'm feeling stagnant. I'm watching everyone else around me on social media live their best lives, and I'm
Mm.
just watching on the sidelines. And unfortunately, it's a prison that we've created for ourselves. We choose that comfort and we choose the safety over all the messiness of really getting out there and living our lives.
So, what are you telling these people that are having this experience of feeling like they're on the sideline of life?
I think it's often a difficult truth to hear, but sitting on the sidelines of life is a more tolerable pain than maybe the idea of getting out there and maybe bruising ourselves or falling and the fear of maybe getting back up. So it's really about how the problem is in a bigger scope, a solution to something more intolerable of us. And it's really about understanding what that fear is all about. And if we really believe in ourselves to conquer those fears.
That's a big thing, even just general success in life. Whatever it is that you're avoiding is probably the thing that you need to be doing in order to have the type of life that you truly desire.
Absolutely. I had a supervisor once say that exact thing. The thing people say they don't want is often what they really need to grow. And ever we do avoid, even though it feels like we're able to do that in the moment, it will seemingly seep out into all these other receptacles in our life. Often we will displace everything we're holding in onto safer targets. So that's why you see people have these way out of proportion reactions when they're driving or when they're in a store or with a barista. It's never really about that conflict. It's about everything we're holding in that just seeps out.
Yeah, talk about that for a second because we see a lot of road rage out there, and I feel like this is in alignment with that. How can people combat that experience or how they perceive somebody cutting them off in traffic?
Really great question and a very common experience. Road rage, how I've seen it clinically, it's rarely ever just about what's happening on the road. It's often about the templates and scripts that gets activated in that situation. Especially when we're in our car, we don't really have the emotional human aspect of other people. We get so in our head and often projection takes in. A lot of the themes that I see in road rage are people who grew up with parents who were unjust, people who were hurting them. So if you have a parent who's controlling, who's attacking you, who's hurting you, you might be very sensitive to feeling like people are against you or they're trying to take from you or they're being unfair. So if you get cut off in traffic, a rule that you have about the world is getting violated. And a big shift I try to make for patients is that it's really about people doing things for them, not against you. Oftentimes, we're so used to feeling attacked and in that vulnerable position that we make all these assumptions that other people are trying to hurt us versus they're really acting out of self preservation.
It's interesting because we never take, again, it's that zoom out, step back for a second, look at the situation for what it is. Could that person even see you? Were you in their blind spot? What are they experiencing inside that vehicle? Did their kid just throw a water bottle at their head? Did their dog throw up in the back seat? What is happening inside that vehicle probably wasn't intentional and certainly had nothing to do with you.
Absolutely. And I think it's about reducing those automatic assumptions that if I get cut off or something hurts me in a way that it was intentional or I'm in danger. And I think the more and more I work with people, the more I realize how easily we can go into this threat or danger mode when really we're much safer than we think we are.
Yeah, even from our interpersonal relationships, let's say at work, you have a conflict with somebody and you're going through something, you make these assumptions right away. What would you tell somebody who's in that conflict with another person and the way they're experiencing them? How could they navigate that to bring it to a healthy resolution?
I would say one, look at the proportion of your reaction to the situation. If it feels like it's totally imbalanced, maybe it's a sign to look inwards. Oftentimes we have these patterns or themes, the things that really trigger us, make us really upset. It's usually a similar script. Maybe you feel like someone's always taking advantage of you, or you're an easy target, or people are always acting unfairly towards you. If you notice those themes, it's so much easier to say, up, it's getting activated again, or up, that music is playing up again and then press pause on it. It's so important, one, to get other people to challenge our assumptions, to really keep us honest and accountable. But for us, ultimately, to internalize that process and to say, wait, what's going on here? What am I bringing to the situation? And what's actually happening here?
want to go back for a second to the sideline of life. I saw a TikTok video prior to hopping on with you, and the person is very frustrated in their 30s. And I've seen this with people in their 40s and beyond as well. Never married, no children, very frustrated with the overall experience that they've been having. I'm curious about your thoughts on that, but my perspective is this, is that it's an invitation for you to do the work physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So instead of seeing yourself as behind in this experience, it's really this gift that you've been given to actually work on yourself in all these areas. Because you look at the people that, they get married young, they have their kids, and then they end up divorced in their 30s. Who won here exactly? If we're going to say that there's a win, who actually won in that experience? And I think it's much better to know thyself, to get to know yourself in all those different areas, and then initiate that relationship for later in life. And I think it's just going to be more robust and fruitful. Are you feeling stuck, ready to reclaim yourself and transform your life? Then you need the Self-Discovery Blueprint. This powerful 21-day challenge is designed to help you break through what's holding you back, build self-worth, and set powerful boundaries. You'll get over 30 hours of expert-led content on self-love, habits, and mindset, along with self-guided lessons, daily prompts, and access to a supportive private community. Plus, you'll gain lifetime access to all the tools, including breathwork and mindfulness practices, to navigate life's big transitions with clarity and confidence. It's time to stop surviving and start becoming with the Self-Discovery Blueprint. You can find out more in the show notes.
Absolutely agree. And I think the hard part of really getting off the sidelines is the belief that somehow is a reflection of you. A lot of people, they take inner meeting to how they're feeling stuck in life. That means I'm broken or there's something wrong with me. And it feels like the game is already rigged against me. So why even try? It feels like fast forwarding through their life. If they're not really where they want to be now, they'll never get there. And instead, it's really important to pick yourself up and say, nope, I was just on the bench. I'm going to take myself back into the game. And it's never too late. It's all about taking one small step to feel like, okay, things are different and I can enact change.
But Sabrina, I've missed out on every experience in the timeline. What now? What do I do?
That's the challenge. It feels like life is already predetermined for you. And instead, it's shifting what are the things that I can do really to change it? Often people don't realize how strong they really are. And it's about creating forward momentum. If you're stagnant for so long, it can be really hard to feel like anything can change. So it's all about doing one small step. It could be making your bed each day. It could mean taking extra time to get ready. And that can change your whole life in small, easy steps.
That stagnation ends up becoming the habit of you if you're not careful. And, it happens and you don't even realize that it does. Because again, we shift into this self-isolation and it feels good because now, again, we're not being challenged in the ways that maybe you would if you're in a relationship with someone. But how can we begin to change that habit when we feel stuck or stagnated with where we're at right now?
I love the way you said that, changing the habit of you. And it's all about becoming.
I can't take credit. That's Joe Dispenza.
But it's true because we're not fixed people. It's not, oh, I'm broken and this is always how it's going to be. Life is full of peaks and valleys. And when we're in a valley, we feel like, oh, we're never going to get back up there again. So it's all about realizing the highs and lows, they make you who you are and they help you grow. So it's all about trying to learn from the lessons, not about blame or punishment. So I try to recommend people to notice reoccurring themes in their life or ways that they can have more insight into themselves. You could journal, you could use self-reflection strategies. One thing I love doing is relationship mapping. You draw a relationship map, you draw out all the people who are important to you in your life and notice the recurring themes. What pattern keeps on happening here? Or a behavior log. Let's say you want to track this behavior or emotion daily for a week. Let's say the behavior is, this is when I avoided connection, I pushed people away, or I was defensive. And at the end of the week, you might say, okay, what are the triggers here? What were the patterns? How can I make one small shift?
I really like that. I also tell people to read their comments, go back to different posts where you've commented on things about relationships and read them. Read them as though you're reading it for the first time, that somebody else wrote that. And if you were to give them advice, what would you give to that person? They always come back with a very valid piece of advice and it's okay. Are you willing to take that advice for yourself now? They always laugh, they giggle about it because it's just, gosh darn it. But it's the same thing with some of the videos that they make as well. It's go back and watch your video, spend some time with it for a second, and just allow yourself to zoom out and think of it as this is somebody that you care about. They're a good friend. You've known them for 20 years, however long you've been on the planet, and you really love and appreciate this person. You want them to be happy, healthy, wealthy, and well. So how would you help them? How would you guide them?
I love that so much. And I think that's one of the highest forms of love we can give to another person and also receive. If you really want someone to be the best version of themselves, that requires having a tough conversation, keeping them accountable. And I think it's those hard moments that are most valuable.
Yeah, that accountability, I think, is difficult for a lot of us to actually hone in on and accept. It's that personal responsibility and ownership of self.
It's so much easier to avoid it and not feel.
Hell yeah, it is. Now, you said before that self-sabotage can be a form of control. Can you break that down for someone who keeps sabotaging the good things in their life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think often self-sabotage, it can occur for the things that we really want to, because it protects you against the vulnerability of actually getting that thing. Once you do achieve success, that can be a really awful and uncomfortable feeling because you might not feel like you deserve it, or you might feel like the other shoe's going to drop. It's going to be taken away from you. And really, it's about getting comfortable with that uncertainty. I think the part of self-sabotage is not only like creating that valley for yourself and being comfortable in that negative space, but also getting more comfortable with the good. And just because it's unfamiliar doesn't mean that it's not helpful and not something that eventually you can feel more safe in.
It's so difficult, especially if you have all the evidence to support that, yeah, every good thing does get taken away. And it's always for a variety of reasons. Some of it is that self-fulfilling prophecy in the way that we're showing up, and other things just naturally happen, and it's just an unfortunate circumstance. So, how can we begin to truly support ourselves in that experience and recognize that not everything is going to be taken away?
It's really hard to do, and intellectually, you and I can talk about it over and over again, but emotionally, it's about facing the exposure of the really feared situation. Oftentimes, it's that people fear disappointment, not because the loss will be so crushing, but they don't have faith in themselves to really navigate that loss. And it's really about believing no matter what happens, no matter what you do, you'll be okay because you have the strength to pick yourself up and keep moving forward.
And I asked that question, it's more for myself because it's something that I'm experiencing now. I've made several pivots in my life. Moving from police work into the online space has been a massive shift, especially when you think about your personality, who you are as a person, how you show up in the world, how people perceive you. And now you're adopting and adapting to this whole new experience of allowing people to see you and witness you in new and different ways. And so there's a lot of rejection that came along with that. We had a conversation earlier about the first 10,000 followers and how difficult that is because people will challenge you in your own personal experiences. And I've seen this with even some of my doctor friends as they post online about their experiences, that if I post my experience, then they feel that it diminishes theirs in some way, shape, or form. And it's no, that's actually just my experience. And my experience still carries weight and still carries validity, even though it's my experience, but it's not yours. And I'm not saying that you have to follow what I'm doing for myself, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, but it's what's worked for me. And there's a rejection that comes along with it, feels so deeply personal to the other person that is giving you this information. So, what would you tell somebody who's going through that experience on how to navigate that to feel and to keep and maintain your sense of self in that experience?
It's a really hard thing to do, but paradoxically, the more we open ourselves up to facing rejection and giving ourselves the experience to recover from it and realize like each time I feel that, it's actually not as painful. We're
Yeah.
proving to ourselves how strong we really can be. Showing up, it's rewarding internally as much as it can be externally. And it goes back to the idea of internal versus external markers of success and validation. It's brave to show up, it's brave to face rejection or go after that thing. And ultimately, it gives you internal confidence that you faced something terrifying to you emotionally and you didn't back down from it. And that in itself is totally worth the journey.
And that's where the self-sabotage comes in, because I've had successes and then I pull away. And then I get frustrated because, well, now things aren't growing. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. And sales are down. And what's going on with that? And then you get this little bit of the ADHD push again, and you're hyper focused and you knock all this stuff out. And now you're back on top for a little bit. And then the algorithm changes and then things get pulled away again. And there's this constant ebb and flow, push and pull. And it's really chaotic at the end of the I just got off the phone with another content creator who's got over 1 million followers. And they're going through this same struggle right now because of the changes in algorithm and the way business has changed and the expectation. Like there's a clear and present shift that's occurring on social media. And so now we have to adapt to that. And how do we do that and continue to maintain, again, our sense of self and who we've created ourselves to be on this online platform?
It's such an important question, and I think it's about shifting our mindset around it. It's about finding joy in the mess. I think life is full of putting yourself out there, just trying something and then iterating and learning from it. It's never ever truly a failure as long as you can learn a lesson. So I think having the opportunity to grow is the biggest blessing. Without the push and pull of life, we'd be bored, we'd be stagnant, we wouldn't really be moving in any direction. The challenge, Goggins talks about this, we constantly are going to have something we're going to perseverate on. We all have a fixed amount of space in our life for us to worry, have anxiety, have tension, and it's all about creating productive tension. So if we can find a challenge, we can then find a way to overcome it. And that's just the way we're wired. And it's a good thing.
How do we stop ourselves from going back to that default mindset, though?
The mindset of I'm stuck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to get there, especially when we're in that state of stress or we're frustrated or we're uncertain of what that next step is, to go back to this original default version of ourselves that ends up being that scared little 10-year-old that everything's going to be taken away. I'm so frustrated. I don't know what to do. This is so, oh, how can we navigate that?
I think you make a really good point. It's so easy to go back to that little version of us that was totally helpless, that was at the mercy of the people around us. And we feel like these victims. Life is happening to us. And
Mm.
it's so important to, I like what you said about reminding yourself of just how powerful you are and all the things you have achieved. It's so easy to forget them. But I wonder too if it's about really taking very small steps. Success isn't about one day waking up and running a marathon. It's about each day running first just a mile and tracking your time and then slowly getting faster and building up more time. It's really about each small step and how it's bringing us closer to our ultimate goals.
Yeah, I also find not living in this place of expectation. So I set a goal, I have a target, I know I want to get over there, but then I release the expectation on that particular thing because it could happen in a number of different ways. There could be 20 different paths that I can get to that one place that I actually want to be, or I end up someplace completely different and way better than I ever could have thought because I can't even imagine that person or that version of me in the future that is capable of doing this thing, because there's so many other things that have to line up. And as you stay present in this moment and you continue to grow, develop, expand, and evolve, new opportunities pop up out of nowhere. You're like, where did that come from? And then you're really pleasantly surprised by that experience because you're staying present in this moment.
I love that completely. It reminds me something a patient once said to me that they want to keep high engagement and low attachment to the process. It's not about expectation, it's about the effort you're putting in. I think this idea from Stoicism, you want to be able to discern what's within and beyond your control and then focus on the former. So that's all you really can do. And that will help you keep on pushing forward.
I love that. The other part of that is having the audacity. Everybody always asks, how did this person do this thing? And it's not because they didn't have the fear or the anxiety associated with doing this thing. It's because they had the audacity. They decided that they wanted to do it, so they did. They believed in themselves, so they did. How can we begin to have that same level of audacity to believe in ourselves?
I love that question. And it's really not about knowing with certainty it's going to out because everything's uncertain in life. We never know how the story's going to end. It's about the willingness to try. And I think the cheat code is trying to make it fun. It can be terrifying to put yourself out there and do something new, but if you can make it more of a journey, something that you feel safe in, there's something you can play in the challenge, that makes it so much easier to go through.
Let's shift gears for a second. With the rise of self-help content on social media, what's one popular narrative or trend you believe is doing more harm than good?
Great question. I think the number one thing that comes to mind is this oversimplification of trauma and the
Mm.
idea healing is like a checklist. Do these four things to resolve your PTSD. And the truth is, healing is a much more nuanced process. It requires a lot of time, support, and setbacks. And the problem with those four-step guides to healing your trauma is that most people aren't going to fall into them. And it's going to lead to so much shame and blame for the people who feel like, wow, I'm not healing fast enough, or there's something wrong with me. Trauma is about you're experiencing something physically or emotionally or both that overwhelms your ability to cope with it. So you dissociate either physically in the moment or emotionally, you go inwards. The idea of healing your trauma is finally feeling safe enough to reintegrate your experience. So you're going to re experience that trauma. And that's all a part of the process of moving forward.
Then the question becomes, do we have to re-experience it to be able to heal that part of us?
So that goes back to the idea that there is one straight path to managing your trauma, and it's really going to look different for everyone. So I, again, don't want to contribute to the oversimplification of what
Yeah.
healing.
No, and I appreciate that. What's your take on the self-love movement? When does it empower and when does it become another form of bypassing?
I love this because the self-love movement can be so empowering, but also could be a way to avoid all the hard things that we've been talking about.
Mhm.
Self-love, it's empowering when it encourages self-acceptance and encourages accountability, because ultimately, true self-love, it's about recognizing and working through all your imperfections. So it becomes a negative thing when it's just used to justify or avoid connection, avoid growth, avoid change. Self-love can also be a way of I'm choosing myself or I'm completely self-sufficient. And often it leads to people feeling really isolated, like they don't have those really intimate connections. So self-love is about confronting really difficult truths.
So, when it comes to developing, keeping, and maintaining friendships, what challenges have you seen from a generational perspective? College students who break up with friends, and then those in their 30s and 40s who find themselves in the middle of a friendship breakup as well.
Great question, because friendships are something that we struggle with throughout the lifespan, and the challenges always evolve depending on our age range. College students tend to struggle the most because their whole lives up until now, their friendships are really close and they are not struggling with veering off paths. Once you're in college or graduating from college, you are brought into all these other different struggles. There's distance, you might have different careers, you might have different schedules and different identities. And it creates all these different rifts as you slowly veer away from your friends. And then that changes once you master that. In your 30s and 40s, you're going to have totally different priorities and life stages of people that you're close with. Some of your friends will become parents. Some of them are going to have careers that cause them to travel or to work 17-hour days. Some people are going to relocate. So friendship breakups are really difficult because we experience them all throughout life. And often it's almost a way of disenfranchised grief. We're not really given societal permission or public acknowledgement of just how painful this loss is. So, because there's not really a cultural protocol for a friendship breakup, we struggle with it so much more. And often it's something, a pain that we don't really talk about. It's not a romantic breakup, there's no clear ending, and there's no real guidebook of how to heal.
Oh, that's so good. And it's true because your earliest relationships are people that kind of get plopped into your life, right? You go through grade school and high school. Ultimately, you end up in college and you're in cliques and groups where you have that support of each other. You're all going through the same thing at the same time. And then you move on and go into your regular everyday life where that can take you all across the globe to different places for whatever you're doing for work. And then that creates that separation and distance between you and your friends, and you find yourself in that place where it's like you lose a part of yourself and you don't recognize that you're losing something until it just hits you one day. You're hit with this profound grief and you're like, what is this? I don't even know what this is. Because it may have not even been something very specific. It's just something that happened over a matter of time and just the experiences that you're having day to day. And you're hit with it. And it's like, where did this come from? And you start to tug on that string a little bit and you begin to realize you're mourning past versions of yourself and your life and your friendships and the experiences that you've had as you grow into this new person that is you today.
Love that idea of mourning past versions of you, especially as you move on through life. Life can feel so lonely. At some points, we're so connected and so close to other people, but ultimately, we're the only constant force in our lives. And that's a really sad truth, but an honest one. And I think the more we're comfortable with opening ourselves up to love, and also the fact that love comes with the fear of loss, the more able we're to live life fully.
No, that right there, the fear of loss. Everybody wants this level of certainty that they're going to get from whatever relationship they're in, any type of relationship that, that's always going to be here. But that's a part of love, is that you will ultimately lose that person in some way, shape, or form.
And I think that's what makes it valuable. If we had it
Yeah.
forever, we wouldn't appreciate it as much. People say like intimacy often is lowest right after you get married. And there's something about the certainty of being with each other that kind of reduces the excitement or the passion there. So the fact that you're choosing these relationships and knowing they're not forever, that makes us have such more value for them.
Man, we could go on for 2 more hours just about modern relationships and the experiences that people are having, and we might have to have you back on the show just so we can do that and begin to dissect modern relationships and the challenges that people are facing. Is there a question that I didn't ask you that you wish I would
But absolutely love that. Can I ask you a question?
have? Sure. Doesn't mean it's gonna make it in the show, but you can ask.
There, you talked about your background in the police force and in the SWAT team. And I'm wondering, it sounds to do that job well, you have to think very fast and quick in the moment. And you
Mhm.
live in this survival mode. Like everything is really life or death. And I wonder, being so good at that, is it hard to turn that off in your mind? Do you often switch into like fight or flight mode? This is life or death.
So what's interesting about that, and we don't talk enough about this, is the amount of people that onboard with trauma into the job. So it's already pre-existing. They don't know they have it necessarily. They just know that life is a little bit chaotic. There's some challenges, maybe some relationship problems, maybe some their coping mechanisms are often unhelpful and can look like drinking a couple days a week, which from a social perspective doesn't look like it's any big deal because that's what everybody's doing. It's just a normal way of being until years and decades go by within the job. And now you're taking on all these additional experiences that you've had in that career path and you don't know what to do with it because you never gathered the tools to be able to navigate that. So it becomes trauma. It becomes the PTSD. It becomes the things that you dream about most and the dreams that never seem to go away. And they'll often ignore and deny that it even exists in their world. I don't have trauma. What are you talking about? It's, but you do. And it's not your job to tell other people what their trauma is or what their experience is. But for a lot of people, I think they end up transitioning out and when they do, and their nervous system begins to slow back down, and you're out in the regular everyday world, it took right around, it's been 2.5 years. So I would say 2 years for things to slow down more significantly. There's a reason why I go on the walks that I do, and they're 7 miles with a rucksack. And it's my way of navigating my own nervous system and regulating myself, which has been extremely effective among other things with breath work and meditation and working out every day and having all of these things be my new coping mechanisms that help me through all that stuff. But yeah, you definitely end up addicted to the experience because everything is it's very low speed a lot of the time, but then you have to crank it back up and it gets high speed. And that can happen in seconds and it can happen in multiple calls in a row, or it doesn't happen for 2, 3 weeks, maybe even 2 months, right? Depending on where you live and the experiences that you have in that community. The other part of it is you also find if you're open to it and you begin to see, right? You step back, you zoom out, you become the observer, you begin to recognize that I had this experience in my childhood or in my life, and we're calling it this now. And you begin to wake up to some of your own experiences. And in that process, it can be jolting to you as an individual because what does that mean for me? And now you're awakening to your own personal experiences, and you got to figure out what to do with that information. And so I think a lot of people go through that and experience that as a first responder.
So interesting. I can actually think of so many people that I know and work with who have experienced trauma and like unconsciously or subconsciously they're drawn to that position because they can like replay it, but they're not the victim in this situation. Like they get to be the savior. And yeah, I have a patient right now who's in his 60s and still is in that role, like constantly drawn towards like the crisis to be the person that he wished that he could have had in his life. But yeah, it's so funny. Like often the things that we want to give to the world are the things that we didn't get ourselves. And it's a way of healing some part of us that was unmet.
Yeah, I think if you're open to it, you end up becoming the person that you needed most growing up.
Mhm.
And that's not my quote. I don't know who said it, and you half said it just a second ago. But I think it's really true that if you're open to doing the work, whatever that means to you, I think the work is an open definition. It's going to be different for everybody from a physical, mental, and emotional standpoint. But that journey of self-discovery, it's really what my stuff is rooted in, all the programs that I've developed and the coaching that I have, and naming things the pivot path and coming up with the 5 R's for reclaiming who you are as an individual and being the person that you were always meant to be. I think we end up diminishing ourselves and our experience way too much when we don't allow ourselves to fully self-actualize and become who we're capable of being, because we allow society and people in our lives, oftentimes the people that are closest to us, to tell us who we are to them. And then we believe that and we live a very small life because of it. And it doesn't have to be that way.
No, I learned so much from you. Thank you so much. It was
I learned so much from you too. Thanks for being here.